And if you need the words, I invite you to open your hymnals to that song now, number 123, and mark the page. Song will be Spirit of Life. And if you need the words, I invite you to open your hymnals to that marked, if you can, or let it rest gently on your lap. That song now, number 1. We awoke to the sound of rain this morning, or if you live at higher elevations, maybe the silence of snow, pattering or gently falling as you awoke. So I have a water meditation for us today. And let's begin with just breathing. Breathing, letting the energy of the music and the warmth of this place flow around us and through us. You can close your eyes if you'd like. Breathe, breathe. Notice the chair sustaining your weight, gravity drawing you downward, earthward. If there's any resistance in your body, any tension, see if you can release it with the next exhalation. Relaxing your face, neck, shoulders. And with the next breath, relaxing arms, abdomen, legs. Let gravity and the chair conspire to cradle you. Be held. Now let us imagine that the surface of our lives is like water rippling in the wind, in constant motion, like the surface of the ocean, drawn this way and that by external forces, wind, gravity, the turning of the earth. There are little white caps, great waves and tempests. The music was just like that, great waves and tempests. Now imagine dropping below the surface where it is still. This is the deeper, essential part of your life. The place of deep peace that is always there within you, just beneath the surface. You know the waves and the wind and the turning earth, all the activity is still taking place above you. But from beneath the surface, from the deep place, it's all just light glimmering and shimmering above you. Everything is sparkling and quiet. Let your heart soften and listen. When your mind wanders, just gently bring it back. If you hear rustling, coughing, traffic, sweet babies, just let the sounds be like light dancing on the surface above you while you rest in that deeper place. We continue in silence. Continuing on in this peaceful spirit, let's lift up some names in our community. We celebrate with Sergio and Demetrius Yancey Chapman, who were married in this sanctuary yesterday afternoon. We celebrate with these professors with us, and we bless them and wish for them to have a safe trip, all who will travel to New York City. We lift up Don Lunt, who's coping with a difficult illness. We send our love to Benita Terrell, Raven Peters, and Amanda Wachtel, whose fathers have just died. We remember Barbara Plagge, who also died last week. Her family is hosting a small gathering of friends in lieu of a memorial service. If you were Barbara's friend, then we hold you in the light this morning too, and you can get information about that gathering from the office. I invite you to add the names in your hearts by speaking them aloud as the chime rings so we can hold them with you. Please join me in a spirit of prayer. Holy One, mystery, we lift these friends and loved ones up to you, to the great powers of joy, renewal, and healing known by many names. And we come before you just as we are, grateful, peaceful, beseeching, troubled, all of us just as we are this morning. Spirit of love, receive our prayers of gratitude when gratitude comes easily and when we feel like beginners. Restore us when we are broken and in need of forgiveness. When we have betrayed ourselves and others, help us to be gentle with ourselves and diligent in making reparations. We pray for all who are experiencing illness or other physical challenges, all who are experiencing grief, loss, or depression, financial stress, or painful relationships, all the many unspoken prayers in the room. May love pour down on all. Spirit of life, receive our prayers for healing and for peace, for ourselves and for the people close to us, for this earth and all of its creatures, for our country and for all nations under the sun. Amen. Peace be with you.
As a reading this morning, we're going to read the purposes and principles of the UUA responsively. You can find these 2 pages in the gray hymnal. They're right before the first hymn. I'll give you a second to get that located. I'll read the first entrance there to get us started, and then these 2 sections on this side will read the first principle with me, and then we'll alternate. These 2 sides here will follow Raven. Okay. The member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association covenant together to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free, non-sponsored search for truth, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. We come to this place because we love what exists here. This church is a living entity, and like all living things, it must be nurtured. Its breath and its heartbeat, its life itself, can only be derived from its living components, us. An offering will now be made by the willing and received in love. Coins collected today go to the Parents as Teachers South Valley Home Visiting Program.
We've had some very wonderful music this morning, and by the way, the poetry is not missed, so I invite
This church is a living entity, and like all living things,
put us a little behind, so if you see me trying to fumble around figuring out what paragraphs to share with you in this sermon, that's what I'm doing. So, the Flaming Chalice has a long history, going back 600 years, to before the Reformation, to one dissident Catholic priest from Czechoslovakia, who was burned at the stake because he went against his church superiors and started lying with parishioners at communion, which is what, in his reading of the Bible, he was supposed to do. It's a long story, but his followers developed the figure of the flame and the chalice to honor their beloved priest. His name was John Hus, and his followers were called the Hussites. He once said to them, "Therefore, faithful Christians, seek the truth, hear the truth, learn the truth, love the truth, speak the truth, adhere to the truth, defend the truth, even unto death." Fast forward to World War II, where the Unitarian Service Committee was working amongst refugees in Europe and needed a graphic icon. They asked a refugee artist from Czechoslovakia to develop one for them. He reached back into his own national history, felt a resonance between the Hussites and the Unitarians he had come to know, and he did us the honor of bestowing that icon on us. And John Hus and his words came in the bargain. Seek the truth, hear the truth, learn the truth, love the truth, speak the truth, adhere to the truth, and defend the truth, even unto death. That word truth is liberally sprinkled through our hymns and our affirmations, especially older ones. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning is how we put it now in our purposes and principles. Once you get past math, or the 4-year-old with chocolate on his face who insists he didn't steal any, it's a little trickerier than we had once imagined. We discovered that we were kidding ourselves when we claimed that we were operating only on reason and observation and science. Even we folks who value those things and try to limit our beliefs to things that are consistent with those things. We realized that we all have beliefs that we hold dear, not because they can be proven by science, but because they strike us as useful and beautiful. And we discovered that we were kidding ourselves when we claimed that we were operating only on reason and observation and science. Even we folks who value those things and try to limit our beliefs that we had all grown up in different communities, absorbed different sets of beliefs to weigh as we matured. We came to understand that not everyone ever does weigh and test the assumptions of their childhood. We're a little more careful now, a little more humble than we used to be when we use the word truth. But we're not paralyzed. In spite of understanding how much we can never know, how often our brains can mislead us, how culturally relative many very important things are, we still care about truth and lies. We understand that society and culture run on a shared understanding of reality, and that our relationships require that we can trust people and be faithful to that understanding. I once cared for a mentally ill woman who was simply not capable of telling me the truth about certain parts of her life, although in many ways she was a very truthful person, steeped in the same UU values that you and I are. Once I understood the rules of her issues and her subjects, we got along pretty well. I knew which of her statements were going to be true and which, if I was going to act on them, I needed to check them out for myself. For a mentally ill woman who was simply not capable of telling me the truth about certain parts of her life. You know who in your family tells the whoppers, who among your friends can't be counted to tell you an inconvenient truth, whose gossip is probably true and whose you need to check on before you spread. Human beings, we lie. Which is not to say that it's not good to tell the truth. We need to trust each other. And even harmless lies or social lies, even when we tell them to avoid hurt, they do a little hurt. They tear just a little bit at the fabric of our society. They make it just a little harder for us to make up our own minds about what is going on outside of the very small range of our own experience. In particular, democracy and other forms of advanced human cooperation depend on the ability of participants to count on each other to play by the rules of truth. In this past year, there's been much hand-wringing about public truthfulness, especially in politicians. Not that politicians of any stripe have ever been well known for their truth-telling. But the problem seems to have grown from shading the truth to what might be called bald-faced lies. From exaggerating what you can probably accomplish if you're only elected to office, to statements made in the face of objective fact and historical record to the contrary. It's been disturbing. It seems to have been a trend. The internet got a lot of the blame. That fake news is hard to tell from real news, that photo doctoring has just gone too far, that groups of people reinforce nonsense for each other, and most of us don't get very far outside of our political and philosophical comfort zone anymore. What with that near infinite selection of news that we now have? We Albuquerqueans do not all read the same newspaper anymore, nor do they watch the same 3 networks that we watched when I was a kid. Instead, we silo ourselves with others who incline to believe as we do and partake selectively of the news that's available. There are some who blame this lack of truthfulness on academia, and in particular on postmodern philosophy, which posits that truth is contextual and that the statement, all truth is relative, is true of all statements except that one. I never thought of that either. This is no doubt all a part of the problem. But let's stop and remember that fake news, known by such names as propaganda when done by governments, and advertising when done to sell products, and tabloids when sold at the grocery checkout line, has been around for a long, long time. It seems to me that the epidemic of lying by politicians who are not only exaggerating but lying, also by businesses who are not only lying to cover up their mistakes but seem to have been on a campaign to make money by evading the law which required lying at every level. All this is a symptom of that winner-take-all philosophy that we've bought into so seriously these days, in everything from permitting billionaires to mega Powerball. Winning then becomes everything, and it becomes so rare, and the consequences of not winning become so dire, such that any means to win becomes acceptable. Lying, cheating, stealing, they become smart ways to win. They give you bragging rights, not a bad conscience. The lying part of this has gotten so bad that a new phrase was coined and officially crowned by the Oxford Dictionary folks, post-truth, relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. It's an interesting comment on the phenomenon. It puts the emphasis, this definition, not on what those in power do, but on how the rest of us see it and view it. Not on accusing some people of damaging the social or political fabric, but rather commenting that appeals to what people already think and feel are more persuasive than facts. That is to say, it's our fault. There are always two sides to every story. Lies aside, misinformation and intuition have always dominated the human condition, but now is a good time to try to understand what drives our deviation from fact. Why are we so often wrong? One answer is that the mind relies on rules of thumb, which helps us to make quick judgments, but also leads to error. For instance, we see confident people as competent. We're sort of hardwired to do that. Confident people as confident. The side effect of that is that a lie told with great assurance is likely to mislead us. We're much more attracted to statements that confirm what we already think is true than statements that prove to us that we've been wrong. Something called confirmation bias, and yes, you're that way too. We find statements about immediate and concrete consequences much more compelling than statements about vague and long-term ones, the basic issue in addressing climate change. And when it comes to lying, you may think that good old-fashioned morality and family values prohibited lying, that this epidemic of lying is a shocking new development in the human community, but actually, it's completely understandable. Old-fashioned morality and family values prohibit lying to your family, to your tribe, to your small town, to the people who know you and do business with you not only today, but for the rest of your lives. The human rule about lying isn't don't lie, it's don't lie to the in-group. Lying to strangers, enemies, and the out-group has never counted for much, and in many societies and cultures is an expected way to deal with others. I think that World War II made us all Americans for a couple of generations, all a part of one in-group. And in those, even as we moved out of those small towns, started doing business with people we didn't know and would never see again, generally got more isolated. An ethic of not lying to anybody did prevail for a while. But in the end, the lessons and bondings of history fade with the generations, and constraints on lying, that you will ruin your business reputation in your small town, which is the only place you will ever do business, are very few these days. The current crisis of truth-telling in politics has to do pure and simple with polarization. 30 years ago, politicians dealt with opponents and supporters. Now politicians deal with supporters and enemies. And you don't converse with enemies, you wage war, and you lie. When we add this to win or take all, you have contemporary American society, divided, polarized, and full of misinformation. 13 years ago, Karl Rove, that master of wager of political war, said something remarkable to Ron Suskind, who reported it in the New York Times magazine. Rove told Suskind, he says, that guys like me were in what Rove calls, the reality-based community, which Rove defined as people who believe that solutions emerge from judicious study of discernible reality. That's not the way the world works anymore, Rove told Suskind. We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. And while you're studying that reality, judiciously, as you will, we'll act again, creating new realities, which you can study too, and that's how things will sort out. We're history's actors, and you, all of you, will be just left to study what we do. Breathtaking, huh? Do you belong to the reality-based community? Yeah. I hope so. So do I, and I'm proud of it. And that doesn't mean that I don't intend to have an influence on that reality. Just look at me with a million other women next Saturday with my pink hat on. And that doesn't mean that I don't understand the diversities of insights and observations from other cultures. But I do believe that there are facts, and accepting facts will make us free. I'm with former President and Unitarian John Adams, who said in 1770, when he had to do something very unpopular, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." I believe myself, and I understand this to be a belief, that it is and will be, in the end, more effective and more helpful to myself and those around me, even to the society at large and to the democracy, which I also believe to be the most just form of government, to be firmly a part of the reality-based community. And therefore I am, with my adopted spiritual father from afar, aim to speak the truth, to learn the truth, to love the truth, to adhere the truth, to defend the truth. I don't expect to have to do that unto death, but I do have to expect to have to do it every day, as long as I live. And if you agree, here's some suggestions. First of all, speak the truth to yourself. Work at staying out of denial. Plant yourself firmly in that reality-based community. And if that makes you anxious, learn to breathe. Make your own version of the serenity prayer that fits your theology and memorize it. You know, may I have the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Learn about the common ways people fool themselves, like confirmation bias and siloing them. Resist them. Secondly, speak the truth among your own people, because in spite of the fact that we are all kind of hardwired to tell the truth, especially in vital matters within our own communities and families, most of us actually don't do that very well. Whenever researchers are studying lying in ordinary people, not political speech, just everything from white lies to fishtails, not only they, but those they study are astounded at the amount of lying that goes on. We tell lies to avoid hurting people's feelings, to give ourselves a little boost in the eyes of others, to tell a good story, to avoid problems, to get what we want without a fuss, all that sort of thing. Social lies to spare someone else's feeling, and self-enhancing lies to make ourselves feel better without doing too much harm are rampant. But the more we do them, the more we promote lies that actually do harm. The more we lie, the easier it is to lie. And the more people hear us lie and face it, they often guess that they're being lied to, don't you? You know. The more it makes it okay to lie. I'm not talking about telling the brutal truth about the person who asks you if that dress makes them look fat, of course. But there are ways to answer even questions like that without lying, such as, "Jane, I've made a vow to myself. I'm not going to comment about anybody's weight, light or heavy. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Do you like your dress?" Work on it. Finally, a hard discipline that sometimes has consequences. Speak the truth to everybody. To strangers, to outsiders, to political opponents, competitors, landlords. It's true that some people will take advantage of you, and more will not reciprocate, but keep on lying to you. This is a spiritual discipline of citizenship. It's one spiritual discipline of the belief that all persons, even those you like or dislike or oppose, have worth and dignity. It's one spiritual discipline of universalism, which at heart is the belief that we all come of one origin and we all have one destiny. It says, "I dislike what you stand for, but we are bound together as human beings, and therefore I will not lie to you." It's an advanced practice. 3 parts of speaking the truth. Speak it to yourself, speak it to your friends, speak it even to your enemies. Secondly, defend the truth. When you hear or read something that you're sure is not true, speak up or comment. Do it by the simple statement, the fact is that, whatever it is you know. There is no point in calling a person a liar. First of all, everyone denies being a liar. You just put them and their supporters on the defensive. Anyway, calling someone a liar is an ineffective strategy in a post-truth world. Secondly, lying is a free, knowing act of speaking a non-truth. And you are an appropriate judge of what facts are demonstrable, but you have no actual knowledge of the inner life of the other speaker. Our president-elect says many things which are demonstrably not true, but I do not actually know when he is deliberately lying, if he is deluded, or whether his mental state makes him not free to tell the truth. And his supporters like him not only in spite of that fact, but because of it. They have come to believe that the ability to lie demonstrates a person's power. Don't play. Thirdly, demand the truth, especially on the internet. I long ago lost track of the number of times during the last year of outrage that I had to comment on the Facebook page of a colleague or friend, and almost all my Facebook friends are liberals or college-educated persons, that was a hoax, that thing they had just posted, or that it was satire, that thing they had posted, as if it wasn't satire, or Snoop says that this is incorrect, gossip, fake news. I know it's lots of fun to be outraged, and it's fun to spread outrage. And there's a lot of clickbait out there. So don't support it. Before you click, before you repost, Google. Check sources. Ask who's funding this little tidbit you just found out about. Look for citations and supporting evidence, all those things your history teacher taught you to do, and more than one reputable reporting source. Teach your children the tricks of the truth trade. It's important. And remind them of what your mother probably told you. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And the corollary, if it confirms too strongly just how horrible your enemies are, maybe somebody's messing with you. Also, seek the truth. And don't do it just within your comfort zone or philosophical silo, but outside of it. Make sure there's at least one place in your world where people you are fond of and can learn from are different enough from you that you will hear a different truth from them. Evaluate that truth for yourself, but hear it from people you love and value. My Kung Fu school is a place like that for me, and you probably have something, a work lunch group, or a conservative uncle, or a mixed bag of a basketball team. Listen to some other news stations every once in a while. Read the columnists you know you will deplore with as open mind as you can possibly achieve. Seeking the truth in the same old places all the time leads to error. And finally, my friends, we must get in the habit of paying for the truth. Good independent journalism costs money. If you care about the truth, if you care about democracy, you have to pay for good journalism. The internet, with its all free vibe, has put good independent journalism in jeopardy on paper and on the internet. We get what we pay for, another thing your mother probably told you, and we are paying the price in truth and freedom of nobody paying the price of journalism. Subscribe to your major news source by giving them money, not just your internet address. Join KUNM and KNME even if you don't watch or listen very much. Upgrade your freebie sources. Take your ad blocker off. Truth is never free. It's important, this chalice, which harkens back to a man who died for his truth. This church, based on reason and honoring the truth, this community here, you, where we practice the virtues of truth-telling and truth-seeking, because we live in a world often sorely lacking in truth, often even in warmth. We live in a world which, in the words of John Huss, needs people who will seek the truth, listen to the truth, teach the truth, love the truth, abide by the truth, and defend the truth, even unto death. Closing hymn this morning is number 145. Please stand as you are able.